corruption in boxing here. Going to do a little preview of an eagerly anticipated fight taking place over in Latvia. It's part of the Cruiserweight Super Series. The first semi-final is two undefeated fighters. The home fighter from Latvia, Mairis Briedis, the incumbent WBC champion, up against undefeated Ukrainian and current WBO champion Oleksandr Usyk. The Cruiserweight Super Series, you couldn't have a more perfect scenario. Four undefeated fighters, four undefeated champions. Denis Lebedev, who may be the WBA regular champion, who opted not to participate in the tournament, has already been defeated by Murat Gassiev. So Yunus Dortico, who holds the WBA regular, is effectively the WBA super champion as far as I'm concerned. So you're looking at the winner is potentially a undisputed, holding all of the belts, and you can throw in the lineal and the ring magazine, because as far as I'm concerned, these are the four best cruiserweights in the world. Now Mairis Briedis has progressed to the semi-final, having overcome, and I use that word tentatively, former Cuban heavyweight Mike Perez, who got himself down to a cruiserweight. The fight took place over in Latvia, and Mairis Briedis certainly took a step out of his normal counter-punching style, and he opted to neutralize a southpaw in Perez, resorting to excessively clinching him. He effectively did an Andre Ward against him, which scorned the wrath of the referee, who was deducting points. But it was just an extremely undisciplined fight. It wasn't an aesthetically pleasing fight. The fight didn't have any rhythm. I guess Briedis, the prospect of victory was far more important than the performance in a very hostile partisan crowd. That was probably the one attribute that you could take from the fight, was the absolutely amazing, boisterous crowd. Hence the reason why this semi-final is back over there. Now Briedis is probably the shortest out of all of the four remaining participants. I think he's a police officer back in Latvia, but his fighting style, now he won the WBC champion having defeated Marco Huck. Another horrible fight. Marco Huck, unfortunately, was just gun shy. Couldn't really get off any of his offense. I think Briedis won that fight very comfortably. May even be a 10-2. I don't recall at this present moment, but he won the fight very comfortably. He does have power. He essentially is a counter puncher. Has good feet. He can cut the distance very quickly. And for me, his prized offensive move is his uppercut, and he can throw the uppercut from a distance away. And he can shorten the uppercut as well on the inside. A good jab, good right hand as well. He does have the tools, but for whatever reason, he tends to fight a little bit negatively. Now against Usyk, he's not going to be able to replicate the tactics he did against Mike Perez. Usyk is a fighter that I've been, watching extremely closely since the amateurs. I had the pleasure of watching him both at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and I saw him at the World Series of Boxing as well. A fantastic fighter. He has footwork like a featherweight, but he's evolved more and more into a fighter as opposed to a boxer. He wants to break you down and beat you up. He's been criticised in the past for some of his performances, but I totally disagree. I love to fight against Tembisa Mukunu, South African, much shorter fighter. Usyk Took a little bit of time. It was his first big US fight. Eventually realised you got the shorter opponent. Started looping the left hand over Mukunu's shoulder roll, and started using the uppercut as well. Then eventually led to the stoppage. But early on, Mukunu, very skillful fighter, you know, had a great fight with Junior Makabu back in South Africa. Very underrated fighter, but a lot of these people don't even know any of the fighters out of, you know, Africa, South Africa. They just think that the epicenter of boxing is the United States. That's about it. So there's too many fucking idiots out there who don't really watch global boxing. But Mukunu was good, but he was just too small. Didn't really have the power either. Troubled Usyk, but Usyk, when he was given instructions by his corner, his ex-trainer, Mr. Bashir, you know, to step on him, not step around him. That's exactly what he did, and he took him out. Now Usyk up against Michael Hunter, an undefeated American Olympian. He was having some difficulty with Hunter's movement, but I think it coincided with Usyk leaving his trainer, and he was with Ross Abner, a new trainer, and I'm not sure how much he seemed to have relishing the instructions he was given. To me, it looked like he wasn't paying no attention whatsoever. Eventually, he just started walking Hunter down. He just moved into a completely different gear, started walking him down, throwing, you know, a barrage of punches, really wanting to break him down and stop him. You know, his stamina is just absolutely off the scale. He can actually start increasing his punch load, going from like 60, 70 punches and at the beginning to like 80, 90, and he can throw 100, 110, 20 punches in the 11th, 12th round. This is a guy whose conditioning is prime. I think he can go 15 rounds comfortably for a cruiserweight with that sort of volume. You know, it's frightening. He has power. He has a great hand speed as well. 6'3". I think he's the same dimensions as Muhammad Ali in terms of height and reach. A very good fighter, and he can take it. And when I gauged in the Marco Hook fight, Hook has always been renowned to having a fantastic right hand. He can definitely punch. He certainly tagged Usyk with 4 or 5 very good straight right hands. Usyk just smiled back at him. And to me, it was like, whoa. You know, I really wanted to see him being chin checked. You know, I saw a little bit of that in the amateurs when he was up against Beterbiev. He took his punches relatively well, but that was an amateur fight with much heavier gloves. And he came through that, and he eventually stopped Hook with an avalanche of punches. But up against Hunter, you know, Hunter was, you know, badly beaten towards the end. You know, the referee should be heavily condemned for not stopping that fight. It's no coincidence that we haven't seen Hunter again. You know, Usyk may have done some significant damage. Hopefully not. Hopefully we see Hunter back, because, you know, he had a lot of tools which I really liked, and I think he can definitely, you know, move on. No shame in just a solitary defeat to, you know, a champion like Usyk. So in this particular fight, I think Usyk will be too flea-footed for Briedis. I think his ability to work around the target is very good as well. Briedis can work well on the inside, but on the outside, certainly at mid-range, fighters who are able, particularly southpaws, and we know he had huge difficulty against Mike Perez, admitting after the fight that he probably hasn't faced too many southpaws, too many sort of tricky southpaws, so he's clearly admitted his weakness. I think Usyk will capitalize on that. I think Usyk will outwork him. I think Usyk will beat him up. I'm not sure whether Usyk will be able to get the stoppage. You know, Briedis can definitely punch. I mean, look what he did to Manuel Char, who I think currently holds the WBA heavyweight, the WBA regular version of the heavyweight championship. When Briedis fought Manuel Char, it was arguably the knockout of the year. Absolutely smoked him down to his boots. So he can punch, and his punch carries later on in the fight as well. But I think Usyk has the punch resistance. I think Usyk will probably come away with an 8-4, 7-5. But a fight taking place in Latvia, ooh, he's going to have to put on a dominant display. Wouldn't even surprise me if it went to split decision. But I'm not even sure who the judges are for that particular fight. But I'll go with Usyk. I think he's the better fighter. 8-4, 7-5. Usyk. The final, which I think is taking place in Saudi Arabia. Semi-final B will be Murat Gasia from Russia, 24-year-old. The Zangief looked like from Street Fighter, but he's a phenomenal young fighter. Heavy-handed. I think this guy can punch through a brick wall up against Junius Dortico, and I talk a lot about that fight. That's an eagerly anticipated fight as well, probably more so than this particular fight. You got two guys who are going to be banging at it out there, so I'll give a breakdown in the next few days, a proper breakdown on and a prediction on that one. So Usyk, Briedis tomorrow, Latvia, ITV box office. I think he's showing the fight pay-per-view. God knows how you subscribe to that, but I'll figure it out. Hope you enjoyed the fight. I'll give probably a post-match of that. Corruption in boxing. Peace.